In Jan Schultz's sketch of what comprises globalization, there seem to be two key elements. The first is called internationalization, a growth of transactions and interdependence between countries. Messages, ideas, merchandise, money, investments, and people cross borders. The second idea is called universalization. This is a process of dispersing various objects and experiences to people at all inhabited parts of the earth. So, what does an Australian Christmas telegram, sent in the early 1930s, have to do with the process by which countries exchange technology, culture, information, and other societal items? Foremost, the cultural practice of Christmas and the technology required for telegraphy were imports into Australia. General use of telegrams did not occur until 1844, when Samuel Morse successfully sent a message from Washington to Baltimore. However, it was not until 1853 that the technology made its way to Australia, when Irish-born scientist Samuel McGowan arrived in Melbourne intending to form a private company to provide telegraphic linkage between Melbourne, Sydney and Adelaide. Unfortunately for him, the Australian government deemed telegraphy to be a public monopoly rather than a private enterprise. Similarly, Christmas itself was also imported. The first recorded Christmas dinner in the country took place in New South Wales Governor Arthur Phillip's home in Sydney Cove in December of 1788. Here chaplain Reverend Richard Johnson conducted the service for the benefit of the small ruling elite and the governor himself. In remembering the event, David Collins, captain of the Marines and judge's advocate in 1788, noted that Christmas Day was observed with proper ceremony. Mr. Johnson preached a sermon adapted to the occasion, and the major part of the officers of the settlement were afterward entertained at dinner by the governor. However, it is not just technology and culture that are given an international context, but also the law. Writing in 1990, American scholar Elizabeth Hass noted of international communications law that an international human right to receive and convey information is perhaps universally recognized, but limitations on the right, its scope, and its priority vary sharply from country to country. The problem being that when each country has its own set of rules, one is inevitably confronted with the problem of universal communication. It is unsurprising, then, that the Telegraph cover notes how all messages are subject to the Post and Telegraph Act and Regulations Law. In this law, there is a section which reads, "The Governor may make arrangements with the Postmaster General in the United Kingdom or the proper authorities of any British possession or a foreign country." The law which governs the exchange of telegrams highlights the importance of international cooperation in the face of lacking international law, a problem facing international arrangements still decades later. However, other elements of international relations are more easily transferable. It is said by G.V. Scammell, in regards to the cultural element of globalization, that by accident, design, but more often unavoidably, there were fusions of cultures. European themes and patterns were incorporated into foreign cultures. The point being that international elements can be confused into local practices and depictions. While the common historical practice of reading telegrams as a family is debatable, the focus upon family itself is not. For instance, the very first Christmas card ever sent in England also depicts a family of at least 3 generations, just as the Australian telegram, sitting down to dinner. So, while there is some cultural exchange, there is also another decidedly local element. The family in the telegram is seated below the Southern Cross as a way to demark its intended audience and give some cultural meaning beyond just that of Christmas. Some of the first Christmas cards printed in Australia depict native wildflowers, painted by Australian artist Helena Ford. Other cards from the early 1880s demonstrate a greater focus upon broader landscapes of forests, lakes, and local wildlife. While the 1933 telegram has nothing so prominent, the placement of the Southern Cross carries forward this theme of Australian-branded Christmas cards. More domestic examples of this cultural imprint include Christmas cards dedicated to the Beveridge Railway employees, the Office Post and Telegraph Department, or the Mayor of Melbourne himself. However, there is also a distinctly international undercurrent. Perhaps as every Christmas card or telegram has ever read, the 1933 Australian Christmas telegram reads "Christmas and New Year's greetings" to the recipient. In this case, the benign nature of the language is important. This phrase is as omnipresent as it is universal, found on Christmas cards all over the world, translated into Japanese and German, Polish, and Arabic, The phrase present on this Australian telegram could, with the exception of the language in the Southern Cross, have been sent to or in almost any country in the world. To return to Scholt, universalization, as the process of dispersing various objects and experiences to people at all inhabited parts of the earth. There is perhaps no more blatant example of this dispersion than the phrase season's greetings.